got my gavel. You got my gavel. You stole it. Jeez. I'm on TV. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's formal meeting of the Phoenix City Council. We're at a special time today because we may end up having a longer agenda. It is our final meeting before we take a few weeks off without formal meetings until the end of August, so we have a busy agenda. We did have citizen comment before the meetings. We'll have citizen comment at the end of the meetings for those citizens who are not able to participate for citizen comment at the beginning of the meeting. Before we begin our formal portion of today's meeting, we do have a special meeting, which is a meeting of the Tatum Ranch Community Facilities District. So let's have that meeting first, and then we'll have the invocation and pledge and enter into our formal meeting. So can I get a call to order and a roll call for the Tatum Ranch Community Facilities District Board meeting?
Board Member DeCiccio?
Here.
Board Member Gallego?
Here.
Board Member Gates?
Here.
Board Member Nowakowski?
Here.
Board Member Pastor? Board Member Valenzuela? Board Member Williams?
Here.
Vice Chair Waring? Here. Chairman Stanton?
Here. The next item is minutes of the meetings. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 3rd, 2013 special meeting of the Board of Directors? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Now is the time and place for the public hearing regarding the final district budget for fiscal year 14-15 and to order the levy and collection of an ad valorem taxes of $1.04 per $100 of assessed value of all real and personal property in the Tatum Ranch Community Facilities District. I now open the public hearing. Are there any cards on this item? Going once? Going twice? I will now close the public hearing. Item number 5 is consideration adoption of a resolution in support of the budget. Do I have a motion on item number 5?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
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 Roll call.
Oh, roll call. I apologize.
DeCiccio?
Yes.
Gallego?
Yes.
Gates?
Yes.
Nowakowski?
Yes.
Valenzuela?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Waring? Stanton?
Yes, so the item passes 7-1, I believe. We're missing one. Yeah, 7-1. Okay. Are there any other comments at this time related to the Tatum Ranch Community Facilities District? Do you have any cards for public comment? Item number 6. This meeting is now adjourned. Now we'll begin with our formal meeting of the Phoenix City Council. We'll begin this meeting as we begin all meetings of the formal meetings with an invocation. Today's invocation will be provided by Pastor David Drew of Celebration Church. Pastor Drew, are you here? Please come forward and all rise.
Will you bow in reverence as I pray? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself and for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. We thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you as well for the freedom you've given to embrace you or the freedom to go our own way. We thank you for loving us even so, from your loving and gracious nature. In your word, you said that citizens should obey the governing authorities since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and the true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and give each one personal peace in their lives and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Phoenix. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor Drew. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice Mayor Jim Waring. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America Roll call.
Councilman DeCiccio.
Here.
Councilwoman Gallego.
Here.
Councilman Gates.
Here.
Councilman Noakowski.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Valenzuela. Councilwoman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Waring.
Here.
Mayor Stanton.
Here. Thank you. Next, we need a motion on the mayor, I guess we're going to approve the minutes. Oh. Gotcha. We do have an interpreter here. If you could wave, Judy Holm. Judy, thank you for joining us today.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Judy, soy intérprete de español. Si alguien necesita el equipo, por favor venga conmigo o con el personal de la ciudad. Gracias.
Thank you. City Clerk, 24-hour paragraph.
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances number G5936 through G5941, S41033 through S41097, and resolutions number 21234 through 21239.
Thank you very much. Councilman DeCiccio, do you have a motion about the meeting minutes from April 16th, 2014?
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Thanks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say
Aye.
nay. Ayes appear to have it, do have it so ordered. Now we have Councilman Gates. Do we have a motion to approve the mayor's boards and commission nominations?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. All opposed, say nay. Ayes appear to have it, do have it so ordered. Councilman Gates, motion to approve councilmen's, members, boards and commissions nominations?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Thank you. Ayes appear to have it, do have it so ordered. We're now going to have 10-minute speeches from every person we just appointed. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to see the looks on your faces. We're not actually going to do that. I'm sorry. Some of them look very hopeful out there. I'm sorry for those of you who came down today to be appointed. We very much appreciate your service. Because of you can see it's a pretty packed crowd and everything. We're not going to go ahead and do the traditional handshaking and everything, but we'll get you sworn in at a later date. Is that what we're doing, Mr. City Manager?
Are we doing a picture?
All right, we're going to swear you in, though, right now.
Who's that police officer in uniform back there?
All right, thank you very much. Next. Thank you. Councilman Gates, do you have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, motion to suspend the rules and change the order of business to permit the holding of a public hearing on the property tax levy and adoption of the property tax levy ordinance.
Heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Oh, second.
There's
May I
a
have a second?
Yeah.
Thank you. All those opposed, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Ayes appear to have it, do have it so ordered. All right, we're now going to open the public hearing, and we do have a few cards, or at least one card. Leonard Clark. Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Council. My name is Leonard Clark, and I believe this public hearing is on the property tax levy.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say that even though I don't own a house, that I hope all of my fellow citizens out there in Phoenix are paying very close attention. I'm not even what you would call conservative. I'm a liberal, but the problem is when we go thinking about or raising taxes, we have to be very careful and we have to explain to our citizens exactly what we're doing. And I want to thank you for being very open, having a public hearing process throughout these times where we're trying to make ends meet as our jobs are being shipped off to other countries. So I would just ask you that you please always make sure this process is as transparent as possible, because I do have a lot of friends that own houses, and every time their taxes go up, it gets harder and harder to survive. So thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark, for your testimony. Do we have any other cards? We're in the public hearing right now. Any other cards in the public hearing? Anybody would like to talk about the proposed property tax levy? Going once, going twice. We are now closing the public hearing. Next item on the agenda is the property tax levy for 2014-15 fiscal year. Do we have a motion on item number 3?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve item number 3. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do have a second. Do we have comments from members of the council on item number 3, property tax levy?
Mayor,
Councilman DeCiccio, the floor is
I
yours.
have a comment. Thank you, Mayor. And I'm on the phone, so I apologize if it sounds like I'm maybe interrupting. It's just hard to hear sometimes, too, as we all know who's ever been on the phone. I'm going to be voting against this, Mayor. It continues the policy of maximizing the primary, which is just another way of saying that it's creating a fiscally irresponsible situation for the city of Phoenix. It does not go far enough in order to fix the problems we're about to see in front of us. Just several months back, we saw a situation where we were supposed to be voting on a policy of either raising taxes or cutting back of services, and that was taken off the table. So when we talk about transparency, that did not create a transparent process at the city of Phoenix. What this does, and I've been talking about this now probably for about 4 years now, by maintaining this policy, it is going to create a situation where there could be massive tax increase of over 50% on the secondary tax next year or the year after that, or a situation where services would have to be cut. It's not a fiscally responsible move to continue on this path at the city of Phoenix. The property tax issue is significant. It's a big issue. It's something that I believe that has not been brought forward to the public, and it's one that I think that the public fully needs to understand what is occurring every year after year at the city of Phoenix. And the only reason we're in this problem is because the city of Phoenix refuses to deal with the short-term problems. So what does it do? Long-term, I believe it puts not only our taxpayers at risk with higher taxes, but I don't believe that this council would vote for a property tax increase. I don't see the votes there for this. And what that then does is it puts at risk the bondholders, and it takes monies away from paying off your debt. So I'm going to continue to talk about this issue. I think it's a problem. I think that it's one of the reasons that we saw a downgrade in our credit rating. I believe that when the bonding companies realize that the city's not going to be raising taxes to pay for this, they're going to find and create consternation with them as well, Mayor. So I'm going to be voting no on it.
All right, thank you very much, Councilman DeCiccio. So we have a motion in favor of item number 3. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
No.
Gallego. Gates.
No.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Waring.
No.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, the item passes on a 6-3 vote, I believe. Next item are liquor licenses, but I do want to take a second. I did see my friend, Councilman Maddox. He may have just had to leave, but I want to thank him for being here and his continued service on behalf of the citizens of the city of Phoenix. Councilman Maddox, you'll be watching this later on Channel 11, I'm sure. Liquor licenses. Do we have a motion on liquor licenses?
No, we're doing 27, 28 separately.
We have a motion on liquor licenses,
Yes,
Vice
Mayor, I move items 4 through 25, holding out items 4 and items 15.
We have a second, a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any cards? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 4 is a special event, Athletes Helping Athletes. Vice Mayor, what do you want to do on item number 4? There's a card on it. We have a motion on item number 4.
Move approval item number 4.
Do we have a second? Second. Leonard Clark, you're up. As quickly as possible, that would be appreciated.
I just want to say, as a former athlete and knowing people who work with Special Olympics, this is not the same. I strongly approve of this, and I hope people will learn more about this because this particular non-for-profit organization goes out and helps athletes, special needs athletes, and we know a lot of people who have children and special needs adults who need help. And one of the best things you can do if you have a child with special needs is get them out there and participate in an athletic activity. And I just want to thank this organization, and I will try my best to find out more and help, and I urge my fellow citizens to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. All in favor of item number 4, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item number 15. Councilwoman Gallego, that's in your district. What's your pleasure? Do we have a card in 15?
Mayor, my neighbors and I have had a productive conversation with the owner of this business, and we have talked, and we appreciate their commitment to work with our police department on crime prevention through environmental design. They are going to open not selling single-serve alcohol, which we very much appreciate, and they're doing a variety of commitments related to the neighborhood concerns on vendors on the parking lots and advertisements on exterior windows, but we do have people from the neighborhood, so I'd love to hear the comments before my motion.
Thank you very much. So we don't have a motion on the table yet. Shayna Duma, is that correct? Okay, please. Shauna, I
Shauna
apologize. You're opposed to the item. You have up to 2 minutes to provide testimony.
Yes, I'm opposed. JJ's Market has been a blight to the neighborhood, and I know we have new owners at this juncture, and that's good. I've looked up the new owners, and their properties are better maintained. Oh, thank you. But we've been working really hard in this neighborhood, trying to rid the blight. And when you have a anchor store on 24th Street that is constantly, will not keep the property up, will let homeless people sleep behind the store. It's just no matter what we do, the store is just a detriment to the neighborhood. So I'm opposed.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come down and
I
provide.
brought a picture just so you can get a
Please,
visual.
City Clerk, could you grab the picture from Ms. Duma and pass it around so the council has the opportunity to see it. We have a couple other cards. Janice Forwood is also opposed. Ms. Forwood, did you want to provide testimony? You're marked not for testimony. You okay? Just for the record, opposed? Okay. And then Gary Barno, not wishing to speak, is in favor. And Josefina Valenzuela is in favor, I assume in light of the leadership provided by Councilman Gallego to find a compromise. Available to speak if requested. Josefina, it is up to you whether you want to provide testimony at this time. No? Oh, you want to come? You're okay? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to hand the floor back over to Councilman Gallego for a motion.
Wonderful. So we had, I think, a very productive dialogue with the owner, and they really are committed to making this an asset for the neighborhood. So based on their letter, which I hope we can put in the official record, I will move approval.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second for approval with the important stipulations that Councilman Gallego was able to generate. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Can we have a, let's see, next item is suspension of the rules. Can we get a suspension of the rules for items 41, 42, and 43?
Move to suspend the rules and change the order of business to take items 41, 42, and 43 out of order.
We have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Vice Mayor, you want to do a motion on 41 and 42?
I do. I'd like to table 41 and 42. We have a long agenda. Obviously, item 43 is sort of the start of the show today, and I think we should get right to it.
All right, so we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any comments by members of the council on 41 and 42? We have cards on 41 and 42. The request has been to table 41 and 42, so I'll take testimony on those items, that request only. Greta Rogers, did you want to provide testimony in light of the fact that the motion is to table the item? The motion on 41 and 42 has been to table those items. You should provide testimony on 41 and 42 in light of the motion. What's that? Well, we don't know what the vote is going to be there, so we want to hear your testimony first. So come on down and provide testimony on your thoughts on 41 and 42. Please. And if Ms. Rogers, you'd like to provide testimony on both, I would accept that as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and Diane Barker also ceded 2 minutes to me per card.
Go right ahead.
First of all, I've spoken before on narratives on complicated subjects in the text of the agenda. It's like reading Arabic. In fact, I could probably read Arabic better. State it clearly, concisely, and factually. This is on changing pension benefit, defined pension benefits program to 401k. I'm opposed unalterably. This will probably cost the city a minimum of $350 million. Last year, San Diego, as I stated here about a month ago, paid $343 million for 13. We're looking ahead 2 years before this starts manifesting and fees being collected. We can no more afford $350 million as a city than I can as an individual. You're 37 mil in the shorts. What are you doing? Compounding your problem? So we will file for a Chapter 9, for God's sake? You people have no ethics, morals, or common sense. Keep the defined benefits program as it is. There is a plan for it to become 80 or more % funded within 20 years or 25. That's not a panacea, but it's better than 300 plus to 400 million because you've switched to a 401k. And stop putting narrative in the agenda that is inaccurate for anybody but a Harvard law student to be able to interpret. None of us is, except as far as I know, Gates. And I doubt if he could have interpreted this one.
I thank you very much.
Now, I'm not finished and my time is not up.
Go right ahead.
You have taxed and feed us, the citizens, who didn't create this mess, which started in 1999, till we're going to pay, now we're going to pay because we have a water meter. You have to have a water meter to measure how much water you've used. So now we're being penalized because we have a water meter to measure how much water we use so you can charge us for the water. That is double dipping taxation at its worst. There are other fees and charges that you have exacted from the citizens. It is unconscionable. You better all take a lesson in 3rd grade arithmetic and learn how to add and subtract. And if you pass that, you can go to 4th and 5th and learn how to multiply and divide, which is faster. I'm sick of your absolute, incomprehensible failure to act intelligently.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers, for your testimony. Just for the record, the item that deals with the possibility of moving to a quote-unquote 401K is item 43, but I let you provide testimony 41 and 42 because they were all pension related. Jerry Van Gass, did you wish to provide testimony on item number 41? Again, the motion on the table is to table 41 and 42.
Thank you. Jerry Van Gass. It doesn't really matter if it's tabled. We're dealing with, nebulous numbers. We were here a year ago, and we were listening to city management paint this rosy picture of how financially sound this city was, how we're moving in the right direction, like our surrounding neighbors, all except Glendale. And here we are. We're looking at $37 million budget deficit with no clue. And, it's probably going to be just as bad next year. And it was such a rosy picture that the perpetrator, the lead person, our city manager, a month after expounding on how great everything was, retired. 2 months after that, our budget director, chief financial officer, also retired and left. So my suspicion all along was there was a whole lot. They knew this was coming. We filed numerous record requests to see how these funds were moved around. We've heard basically crickets. I don't understand what part of public records this staff doesn't understand. Public is public, the citizens, not the staff. You don't get to pick and choose what you give us. We've got recourses, and we're going to follow every one until we get those records, because this has got to stop. We're not going to have this going on. It's our money. We want to know where it's going. I'll close with Pat Flannery. Just last winter, wrote an article on record request, and he concluded by, as a citizen, these are your public records. Know about them, find them, use them to educate yourself and your neighbor. It's not just a democratic right, it's a responsibility. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Gass. Tim Sierakowski is next. Did you provide testimony on the proposed motion? Tim Sierakowski? He's coming. I got you. And then Leonard Clark will follow.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Sierakowski. Thank you for this time. I just want to make a correction. It wasn't 43. 43 was to put it on the ballot. 41 and 42 is what Greta was referring to, just to make a correction to you.
I think, I apologize, I want to make sure. She was suggesting that this 41 and 42 would create a 401K type system, and that's not what 41 or 42 would do, and I wanted to correct it for the record for those maybe watching at home, but that's what I was referring to. I apologize.
I think switching in midstream before we even have given something a chance, like the pension plan, is really going to harm the taxpayers. I've run numbers last night, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, are you guys really doing this? How much money are you going to really cost the individual pension people in this town if you continue with your behavior? This is really pretty much ridiculous. You're supposed to be working for us, not us working for you. I'm going to say this once again. You work for us. I don't work for you. And it seems that government today has switched hats here. They think we're supposed to be doing your bidding, and you're supposed to be doing our bidding. So it becomes kind of monotonous to see that you guys aren't really doing what the people want. And I'm not really sure if you are really getting this, because it seems like all government entities any longer are doing this. I was looking over your budget forecast for the last 5 years and everything else that you guys have put out since the beginning of January. And I'm wondering if this information is really accurate, or if you guys just make this up as you're going along, because I run all the numbers and all these. The numbers don't add up. So if you guys have financial directors and financial people running this, how come the numbers don't add up? Why don't we start putting this Phoenix on a right course? Let's start developing new plans that consequently we can get businesses coming here, start generating revenue and doing other things that are going to make this city money. For example, the Super Bowl. Let's do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yurkowski. Leonard Clark is the next speaker on item, thank you so much. And then, well, we have 41 and 42 on the table. Mr. Sierkowski, was your testimony on both 41 and 42? Okay, thank you so much. So we have a motion to table. We have a second. Any comments from members of council? The roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Mayor.
Yeah, council, go ahead.
Am I on?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple quick comments on the table, and I know everybody wants to leave, so I'll make it very quick. But I think this shows what occurred here at the City of Phoenix. There are two major things that happened here. One, in this non-transparent process to try to rush these two items to the ballot in order to compete with the citizen-driven initiative, the City of Phoenix has spent hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars for this failed effort, and in a time when we should be spending that money on police officers on our streets. The second thing is that it also showed the clear conflict of interest that's occurring at City Hall dealing with this issue. All you have to do is read those initiatives, those plans that were put together by city staff, and you will see that the clear intent there was to kill the citizen-driven initiative. But the third and most important thing that it did is it showed the true cost of pension spiking. And I know the media and others have been talking about how pension spiking has stopped at the City of Phoenix. It's given a convoluted message, but it has not stopped. And it shows that if the citizen-driven initiative goes forward, it will save over $380 million, taxpayer dollars, on spiking alone for COPERS, the City of Phoenix employees, not including the police and fire. That represents the spiking number right now, today, at about $19 million a year that the City of Phoenix is continuing to move forward on. The City of Phoenix spikes pensions $19 million a year, according to the reports that were generated here by the Cherian Group. So what this motion does, I'm going to be supporting the motion. I'm glad that we're doing this. But I think that it also showed what actually occurs behind closed doors at City Hall in order to fight citizen-driven initiatives that would make true, lasting pension reform. So this is going to allow the pension reform initiative, the citizen-driven initiative, to stand on its own as it should. Thank you, Mayor, and I'm going to be supporting the motion.
All right, thank you very much. So the motion is to table, and I was told earlier, I guess there's not supposed to be debate on that. I apologize. We often don't do a motion to table, so it's not denying it, it's not supporting it, just sort of we're going to deal with it at a later time. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next item is item number 43, which is to establish a form of the ballot for the November 4th, 2014 election. I do have some cards on that item, but we have our city manager and his team, including legal counsel, here to explain why they have proposed what they have proposed in the packet for the proposed form of the ballot. So without further ado, and without putting a motion on the table, I'm going to ask our city manager to lead the discussion on item number 43.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm here at the table today with our retirement administrator, Cindy Bezery, Assistant City Manager, Milton Dahoney, and our legal counsel in this matter, Wes Stockard from Littler Mendelson. He is here to answer technical questions to the extent he's able to do so. The item before you today recommends language to refer to the November 4, 2014 ballot. That election will be conducted by Maricopa County on behalf of the City of Phoenix, and since the election is administered by Maricopa County, we must conform to their rules, including a limitation of 50 words allowed in the descriptive title. A citizen's initiative has been properly submitted and certified by the city clerk to the ballot, and today the council's duty is to refer a form of the ballot to Maricopa County, and we have proposed some language for your review and action. Staff from the city manager's office, the retirement office, budget and research, finance, and city clerk have done significant review and study of the initiative through our actuarial and pension consultants at Chiron, Siegel, and Buck. We have also been advised by, as I said, outside counsel from Littler Mendelson. At the direction of the City Council on June 10th, we assessed all aspects of the initiative for costs or potential savings. And according to the studies conducted, it is our best management estimate that, assuming a 5% city contribution to the new defined contribution plan that will be formed by the initiative, this initiative would cost the city an additional $358 million over 20 years. The number reflects management's understanding of the constitutional and contractual legal issues raised by the proposed charter language of the initiative. The estimated cost does not include savings that are legally questionable and may be overturned if legally challenged. Those are all contained within the report. This is particularly as it relates to changes to pension terms for current employees and assumptions about compensation that is currently in employment contracts and employment agreements. Again, this assumes a mid-range 5% deferred compensation contribution rate for the plan described in the initiative, although the actual rate would be set by the City Council if the initiative is passed, and we would advise something between 3 and 7%. State law requires the descriptive title to be no more than 50 words, which is a significant constraint in drafting language. The language presented to you is staff's management's best recommendation to describe the initiative contents accurately and neutrally. It is ultimately the authority of the City Council today to refer specific language to the county. Thank you, and we are happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. City Manager, for that information. Obviously, what's got a lot of attention of people is the staff's proposed inclusion of language as it relates to our police officers and firefighters and city payment to PSPRS if the initiative were to pass. And I was hoping you could do the best of your ability to explain why U.S. City Manager included that proposal in the proposed form of ballot language.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to explain as best I can here. There are really two places in the charter language proposed that we think leads to that and creates what we think is legal issues about including Public Safety Personnel Retirement System, or PSPRS, which covers our police officers and firefighters. Section 2.2C, which talks about current employees that do not enroll in the plan established shall not receive city contributions to any retirement plan other than contributions to the Phoenix Employees Retirement Plan. That, we think, inadvertently or not, includes PSPRS. The second one is section 3.1, where it talks about the adopted plan shall be the only retirement plan offered to future hires, which we think also includes specifically future employees of the City of Phoenix, some of which will be police officers and firefighters. So it's really those two places that we think brings the police officers and firefighters into the restrictions of this initiative.
All right, thank you very much for that information. Obviously, it was a lot of the questions that I think have come up over the last few days as the staff proposed language has been made public, is that portion of it. There were a lot of public statements about the fact that this was not supposed to include police and fire, but it's based upon your review of the actual language that is in the proposed initiative that led you to that conclusion. I don't want to speak for you.
Mayor, that's correct. While there is a lot of discussion about a preamble that's included with the initiative, what we've been advised is really the guiding language, is the recommended language for the charter, and it's important that we're paying attention to the charter language, because our successors 20 and 30 and 40 and 60 years from now are only going to be able to depend on what language is in the charter. And I'll just give you an example. You know, this year we had to go to the charter for some language about city taxation as it related to the library system and caps. That language is probably 50 years old. I don't know what the intent was when it was first put in there, but we had to be guided by that specific language. So it's really important that we focus on what the charter amendment language is more than a preamble.
All right, I'll open it to the other members of the council to ask questions. We do have some cards here, but I want to make sure that council members had an opportunity to ask questions of our city manager and his team as well.
Thank you. You left out one state. You read a couple tracts from different pages. But I'm looking at the text of the proposed amendment. It's date stamped by the city clerk, January 10th, 2014, so I assume it's the same copy you have. It says very clearly in section 1, number 9, this act is not intended to affect individuals who are members of or are eligible to join any other public retirement system in the state of Arizona, such as the Public Safety Employees Retirement System. A lot of people, no offense, Bill and Mayor, a lot of people make fun of lawyers for not being clear. What could be more clear than that sentence I just read? And you're saying it doesn't count for anything, and I guess I would take issue with that because it's right up front, and unless you expected them to repeat this statement in every section, after every sentence in the rest of the item, I guess I don't know what else you would expect.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor. So I can't advise we can't advise the initiative writers how to do their work, but we do acknowledge the preamble does say that clearly. You are correct. Section 1, number 9 of their findings and intent. But what is guiding to us, according to what I've been told, is the language starting under Part 5, Phoenix Pension Reform Act of 2014. And the language in there is, as I read, 22C and 3.1 do not reflect that intent in our view.
Vice Mayor, do you have a just
Yes,
please?
I do. So I guess I've heard that first statement that seems crystal clear, apparently to both of us, doesn't count. But I guess I haven't heard an explanation of why it doesn't count. So Wes or somebody want to explain why it doesn't count? Because that doesn't make a lot of sense to a lowly layman like me.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor. So I wouldn't say that the preamble doesn't count because it does state intent. However, what will be in the charter is not the preamble, but will be Part 5, all those things in capital letters. And so in the charter forevermore, or until voters would change it again, should it pass, would not be the preamble, but will be the actual words, all of them, but in particular 22C and 3.1, that as I said, we view as having significant issues that would encompass, in our view, or potentially encompass police officers and firefighters.
Thank you. I guess I would just say, you're saying that you're not saying it doesn't count, but you are saying that because you're saying you're going to go ahead and include the police and fire, where clearly this says that's not the case. I guess we could quibble about it all day long. I'm sure the courts will wind up sorting it out. But I did notice in your presentation, we didn't read that first Section 1, Item 9 sentence, which, again, as we both agree, could not be more clear. So I guess I would say we're just going to have to differ. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Councilman Gates?
Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. And I think that Vice Mayor Waring has been watching some lawyer shows at night. You know, I thought that was
I watched half of Matlock last night.
that was excellent. Just wanted to follow up on preamble. You keep using this term preamble. Where does that appear in this initiative? Is the word preamble there anywhere? Because I didn't see it.
No, Councilman
Okay.
Gates, you're correct. It is not. That's my
That's
layman's
kind of,
term
yeah.
for it.
But this is actually language that would be on the ballot, that the people of the city of Phoenix will be asked whether or not they want to vote in favor of it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, in fact, this language that Vice Mayor Waring was talking about, the heading over it is text of proposed amendment, right?
That's correct.
What's it amending? We don't know.
Yeah, it's amending the city charter with Part 5, Phoenix Pension Reform Act, being the language that would be in the charter.
Okay, but it doesn't say up there text of proposed amendment, and we don't mean the first page and half of the second page. It just says text of proposed amendment,
That's correct.
right? Okay. I think what this discussion has illustrated is that reasonable minds can disagree on what the meaning is of this initiative. And so, sort of, to go into where I'm headed later, I think we're going to see that throughout this discussion, that reasonable minds could disagree. And before we commit to very conclusory language, we want to make sure that we as a council are comfortable that this initiative actually says what the ballot language says. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I think we had other, Vice Mayor has some additional questions. Do we have other members of the council have questions first?
Mayor?
Please, go ahead, Councilman DeCiccio.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. A couple questions, and I want to follow up on the same line of questioning as Councilman Gates. But before I get into that, if I could ask City Manager Zerker. Hello, Ed. Why did you not include the savings from the initiative in your presentation?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, the language that we provided is our best recommendation to describe the initiative as neutrally and completely as we were able to in 50 words.
No. I'm okay with the 50 words, quite frankly. I like the fact that there's a neutral third party doing it. I think that was a good thing for cities, and we've done that for years. The part that I'm concerned about is the presentation that you gave talking about the cost of the initiative being $350 million, but you didn't say anything about what the potential savings could be.
Mayor,
how much are those potential savings, and why was that not in your presentation?
So, City Manager, if you could talk about, you gave obviously during your presentation a discussion about your analysis and staff's analysis as the cost of this initiative were to pass. How did you come to your conclusions?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman DeCiccio. Yes, so my presentation about management's conclusions about the initiative did include that we believe that a reasonable estimate of cost would be $358 million of cost over 20 years. The council did direct us on June 10th to have our consultants go back and cost out each element of the program, regardless of whether there were any legal concerns with it or not. That is contained in a report that was issued last Thursday called Updated Ballot Initiative Analysis. It does go through each section and does refer to some savings. The reason why I did not include them is that it is not management's opinion that those savings would be realized due to the legal issues surrounding each one of those individual items.
Do you have a legal opinion on that, or is it just what you're doing is just talking to attorneys? I mean, do we have anything in writing saying that?
I've consulted with our attorneys on that, yes, Councilman.
Can we provide something in writing then?
We could certainly have an executive session discussion about that legal advice.
Well, we're voting on it today, so I would recommend strongly that this council move forward with a legal or written opinion from the city staff that describes whether or not this can be legally justifiable, or is it just something that we're just saying? I think there needs to be written documentation as to exactly what this is, or it's all phony baloney. The second question I've got for you, in that $350 million cost, did you include in there any of the deferred compensation savings?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, one of the assumptions that we made as management in this is that the removal of deferred compensation, which I think you're referring to, would be that the initiative would prohibit us from contributing to both of COPERS and or PSPRS and to deferred compensation. Our assumption there, however, is that because that is part of a total compensation package for employees that is contained in agreements or contracts, that we would have to reopen contracts and agreements with our labor groups and negotiate that in good faith. And we did not feel that we could assume that that would go away at a zero cost to the city, that there would be an exchange of value for removal of something as it relates to those contracts and agreements.
But that would be in the first 2 years. I'm in agreement with you on that. Your first 2 years, you can't change those contracts around. But you didn't include that in the contracts moving forward. How come?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, no, we did not. Again, because that is considered part of compensation and would certainly be part of negotiations moving forward as well.
Well, that's not a legal issue, is it? I mean, it doesn't stop it legally.
Mayor,
it just literally is something. What we heard last time from city staff was that there was you were making assumptions that that the council would never do this.
Mayor,
so that's not necessarily true. You don't know that.
Mayor,
it's not about a legal foundation, is it?
Councilman, I'm going to let the city manager answer your question again.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman DeCiccio. I would just emphasize that what I'm telling you does not have the force of legal recommendation because I'm not the city attorney. It does have the force of the fact that I am the city manager, and my job is to report to you my best recommendations on the effect of policy. And so it's my assumption and recommendation that we could not assume a zero, removing that compensation moving forward as a total savings, because we need to manage that with our employees who today consider that to be a part of their total compensation package. Certainly, the council can make that decision and would have the opportunity to make that decision, but that today is not my recommendation as how we view it moving forward.
I totally agree with you, Ed, on that part. I understand that that is your assumption on there, but after the 2-year period, the council could pretty much do anything it wanted, couldn't it?
Mayor Councilman DeCiccio, yes, the council has the ultimate authority in deciding that issue.
So it doesn't have a legal foundation to exclude it from the cost savings, then, does it? It's basically based on an assumption of past history or what you think that the council may do. Is that correct? It's not based on legal foundation after the contracts are up, is it?
City Manager, you want to once again explain the rationale for your recommended cost analysis?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Councilman DeCiccio, yes, the legal piece of it would be as it relates to the next 2 years' contracts. Beyond that, it would need to be a negotiated item with our unions and associations and our employees. And as we saw this year, ultimately the council does decide on that. So it is not a legal recommendation past these 2 years, but it is my best management analysis that you cannot, that we as management would not assume it to be to go completely away.
Okay, good, because I wanted to clear it up, because in your comments originally you said that you did this because of legal foundation, but these are just based on assumptions then on what you think may or may not happen 2 years from now.
Mayor,
Mr. Manager, if you want to respond to that.
Mayor Councilman DeCiccio, the legal piece of it would be as it relates to the next 2 years of contracts, and beyond that is my recommendation.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman DeCiccio. I'm looking to other members.
Mayor, I do have one quick thing on that. That does bring it up. But I mean,
Councilman, if you want another question, go ahead.
When we look at staff recommendations on these positions, doesn't that impact our employees? On that just alone, because it's going to have an impact not just on the city manager, but on all the other employees as well, too. I mean, how does staff make a recommendation like that on something that directly impacts their own income? How does that happen? Can I ask that question about the conflict? I'm trying to be.
Okay, so I think the nature of the question, I want to make sure I get this right, is the feeling that our professional staff is unable to make a professional recommendation because they're city employees as well? Is that the nature of the question?
Well, I think it's because it has a direct impact on their own income. I mean, what we've seen, Mayor, is this. We've seen city staff present the reports, hire the consultants, hire the attorneys, put together the entire plan on items that impact themselves. And you can't expect people not to be thinking in their own interest on that. I mean, so there's a clear conflict of interest on that. So when I hear things like this is the city staff recommendation, there shouldn't be one. This should be from an outside entity giving, and this is more personal too. I just think that there's just been a conflict that created this problem.
Councilman, I really appreciate your perspective on that.
But Mayor, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Okay, Councilman, you have.
But I do want to.
Do you have additional questions? Because we're asking questions of our professional staff.
No, we're asking. Yeah, we're giving comments too, Mayor.
Well, no, we're going to do comments later on. We're going to do comments later on. So if you'll have time to give comments, I promise you.
Okay.
You'll have time to give comments. I just want to see if any additional
Mayor,
questions.
You're always cutting me off. I would just appreciate letting me finish this.
Councilman, no one talks more than you, my friend. In this case, I'm asking if you have any questions for staff. Other council members have questions, and so I want to get to them as well. And then you'll have plenty of time to give comments. I commit to you that.
Let me ask you a question about
Please.
the conflict of interest, then, Mayor. And this is a question of staff. Is there not a conflict of interest here giving recommendations on things that impact your own income?
Okay, so that obviously that's an impossible question for them to answer, so I'm not going to ask them.
I'm asking staff. I'm asking the question, Mayor, and I have the floor. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm
I'm
chair of this
I want to
meeting.
get my question.
I'm chair of the
I know,
meeting.
and I am allowed to ask a question related to something that's real important here.
You have asked a question, and now I'm saying I'm directing staff not to answer the question about their own conflict of interest, because for obvious reasons, Councilman, they wouldn't have provided the information if they or council believe that there was a legal conflict of interest. The point is well
Mayor, I
made.
just think
The
it's
point
wrong
is
you
well
keep
made, but
cutting me
I'm
off,
asking,
but go ahead.
I'm going to direct
That's fine.
staff
Go
not to
ahead.
answer the question. If you have additional questions, go right ahead.
If staff doesn't want to answer it, that's their choice, but
No,
I
make
have
it
a
clear,
right
make
to
it
ask
clear.
the question.
As chair, I'm directing them not to answer that question, but you have additional questions
and
about,
as a councilman, can I not ask that question?
you can
now?
ask, but I'm directing them not to answer, but if you
All
want
right,
another
go,
question, go ahead.
Mayor, you win the debate. Go ahead.
Okay, are there additional questions, members of the council? Councilwoman Gallego?
Well, first of all, I think it's, and when we talk about what we should cost and what we shouldn't, members of this council, including myself, have said we are not comfortable saying this is going to be a cut in compensation if this is approved. I think that we have obligations, including our existing contract. We have a collective bargaining process, and we have to follow that. And I would not be comfortable with those cuts, so it's unfair to tell staff to put those in when they're getting different recommendations from different members of this body. I wanted to ask questions about other costs that weren't included. The costs of the litigation, which we've had testimony from several parties that if this were to go forward, they would sue. Did you estimate the cost of that litigation?
Mayor, Councilman Gallego, we did not include estimated costs of litigation in this number, and it's impossible to know what it will be. I would just say this. 2+ years ago, the city of San Jose, California, passed significant pension reform, somewhat similar to this. Some of the specifics were different, but the idea was there. The city of San Jose is now 2 years later in the middle of 10 separate pieces of litigation, and it has cost them $3 million in expense thus far, and it's not resolved, and they've not been able to fully implement their pension reform. So that's one example of another city relatively close to our size that's had something happen in that way, but we did not include that in the $358 million number, no.
And did you include the cost of establishing a new system?
Mayor, Councilman Gallego, we did not include the cost of that either.
Okay, and I think that would also be a significant cost. It seems like you focus mostly on actuarial costs based on contribution level, which does have more definition to it than some of these other costs that are really up to policymakers like ourselves here today. So,
Mayor, Councilman Gallego, actually, Ms. Besri has an estimated cost on establishing a plan.
Please.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Gallego, we looked at our current administrative costs for other deferred compensation plans we have, and we expend about $2 million a year in fees that the city assumes. That does not include any legal costs, actuarial or other costs that would be required to establish a new plan.
Councilman, any additional questions? Are there any other members of this council that have a question for professional staff? Okay. So the staff has made their recommendation. It was included in the packet. I know Councilman Vice Mayor has passed out some proposed language that he would like, and I don't mean to mischaracterize, but essentially his language does not include, I think it tries to track staff reasonably closely recommendation, but does not include the impact on city contribution to police officer or firefighter retirement system plans. The only reason I want to make sure that as the members of the public come forward and provide testimony, that they can focus on anything they want, but that may be of a particular area of interest to this council, in addition to the cost. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank
and I'll
you.
take
To that point,
comment.
yes, I did provide an alternate. I don't think it changes too dramatically. I think it's as crystal clear as I thought the text language was, particularly in the number 9 that I cited. But I would say I don't think we should be putting things in to the ballot language when we only have 50 words that are clearly in dispute. Your lawyer says one thing, we got a lawyer right here in Councilman Gates, Harvard educated, saying something else. So, sorry, after Greta's comment, I had to throw that in. Yeah, but you know, I guess realistically, it's clearly in dispute. You say you've got the 2 points that are crystal clear. Well, right up front, there's something that couldn't be more clear, and probably to a lot of legal minds. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm sure to other some lawyers, they would also say it's bulletproof. So I don't think we should be putting something in there that's clearly not clear. So I understand why some people would want to have that in there, but I don't think that's appropriate in this 50 words. So mine does take that out, among a couple other things, but we can get to that. Are we going to discuss this now? Or
Yeah, no, I just wanted to frame.
Okay, all right, I just
I'm going
wanna
to hear
make
from the
sure.
public now, because I wanted to frame it, that will be, I'm predicting a issue that this council discusses, so I want to hear people's
that's
input
fine.
on that item. Kathy Gleason is the first speaker. She's opposed to, I'm assuming means she's opposed to, well, you can speak for yourself. Good to see you again. How are you?
You're probably tired of seeing me. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kathleen Gleason. I live in District 2, and I am a registered voter. As many of you know, prior to my retirement in 2011, I was the city's budget director. As you may not know, I have also served on the city's pension board for almost 17 years, so I've seen my fair share of actuarial reports. Therefore, as someone who is intimately familiar with the city's pension system and how the budget works, I'm here to ask that you tell the voters the truth. Let's ignore for a moment that this initiative is so poorly written that the city will likely spend millions in legal costs and years in court trying to implement it if passed. And let's ignore that we have no idea who is actually funding this initiative and what this group's motive might be. We know it wasn't a local grassroots effort. And instead, let's focus on what I know best, the numbers. This initiative will not reduce the pension system's unfunded liability. This initiative will not allow the city to remain competitive with other local government employers in recruiting. And all of the savings the writers of this initiative count on have either already been implemented, are probably unconstitutional, or violate existing contracts. We know from the actuaries who are most familiar with our pension system that this initiative will cost taxpayers somewhere between a few million and more than 600 million, depending on at what level the City Council chooses to contribute to a new defined contribution plan that would be created. At a modest 5% contribution level, the staff report that is included in today's packet indicates the cost will be $358 million over the next 20 years. After 20 years, it will begin to save a bit of money. But until you save the extra $358 million already spent in another 20 years, it doesn't begin to break even. Regardless of whether you think city employees should have a defined benefit or a defined contribution retirement plan, when does it ever make sense to spend $358 million on a philosophical question? The least you as elected officials can do is ensure that the city's taxpayers know what they are voting on this November. They're voting on tax increases or cuts to services because some out-of-state dark money group wants to eliminate pensions that average $30,000 a year. Please tell voters the truth that this will cost them dearly. They deserve to know that before casting their ballot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gleason. Frank Baccioli is next, followed by Roman Ullman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. This is about transparency. It's about actually showing the voters what the situation is. This will cost the citizens of this city over $300 million. This isn't new ground you're covering. Believe it or not, this proposal has been proposed in many other cities. Cincinnati, those voters saw that it would cost hundreds of millions of dollars and voted it down 3-1. Why? It was presented in the ballot as fact that this will cost the taxpayer money. This will cost the taxpayer money. How many mistakes are this city council going to make over the next few years that are going to cost the taxpayer money? Enough is enough. States that have passed this have actually switched because they've shown it costs the taxpayer money. So we can argue about whether it illegally diminishes current pensioners. We can discuss whether it affects public safety officers or not. The fact is it's going to cost the taxpayers money at a time they cannot afford it. So I would hope that the council would actually look at the language and not just talk about transparency, but present clear language on this ballot that this will cost the taxpayers money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Baccioli. Roman Ullman is next.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Roman Ullman, and I represent a number of retiree groups and also senior citizen groups. And I will tell you right now, I find it kind of amazing that the council is even doing this, because we call this a citizens initiative. Well, I think if we're talking about truth in marketing, we ought to really talk about a out-of-state organization that sends in hired mercenaries, spends millions of dollars to buy the votes of people who signed the thing and then put it out there, and they call it a citizens initiative. This is not local sponsored. This is outside organization sponsored. It was the citizens of Phoenix who built this into a great city. It was the seniors and the retirees who have built Phoenix into a world-class city. And now when we are at the point we're supposed to enjoy the fruits of our hard work so that our children and grandchildren can profit from this, we have outside organizations who want to come in here, swoop in, and reap whatever benefits that they're going to reap from this. This is not going to benefit our city in the least. It's not going to make Phoenix a wonderful place to live in. So what I'm asking is this: why is it that people who talk about transparency, who talk about honest and open debate, would not want to inform our voters what the true cost is going to be to our city that we built, not them, we built it, to our city, to our communities, to our families, and to our children? We need to tell the voters what the facts are. And talking about transparency, I would ask council members, when they start throwing numbers out there, if you really want to be transparent, tell the voters where you got those numbers from. What organization actually gave you those numbers? Don't make the mistake, because if we do, we're going to have the same problem where people lost the railroad and the railroad doesn't service them, or you have a gold mine that has no gold in it, or an oil well that has no oil. Do not saddle Phoenix with a situation that happened in Detroit and other cities where the schemers will leave us and we'll be saddled with the problem.
Thank you very much. Scott Musey is next, up to 2 minutes, followed by Leonard Clark. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, my name is Scott Musey, Chairman of the Citizens for Phoenix Pension Reform. Rising, I guess, to raise concerns about the proposed ballot language being considered by the council today. In looking at the language, and I think that was made clear today in the Arizona Republic in discussing it, ballot language should be as impartial, nonpartisan, factual as possible. And there shouldn't be language in there that's included that can have any sort of dispute or not clarity associated with it. And in particular, just touching on a couple things that have already been hit on. One, on the police and fire language. I think we believe strongly that this language does not affect police and fire. In fact, we don't believe the initiative affects police and fire. We included legislative intent language to make that point clear. A couple of the things pointed out by staff related to the two provisions. If you look in the definition sections, it defines what a current employee and a future hire is, to make clear that it doesn't affect police and fire. We have a legal memo from a reputable firm, Tiffany & Bosco, stating that fact. So I think that reasonable minds can obviously disagree on that, and we strenuously disagree that it affects police and fire. Anything under dispute like that should not be included in the language under the initiative. We applaud Councilman Waring's proposed amendment. We believe that it's a fair and is a middle road approach on addressing language that allows for if people want to argue one way or the other, that's fine, but we're talking about the ballot description, and that should be completely factual and honest. And so we just ask that you modify the language, include what is factual about the initiative. We would like to see something added in there, the fact that the initiative addresses pension spiking and other abuses, but we urge the council to do that. We'll seek any remedy possible to make sure that the citizens, the 50,000 citizens that signed the petitions, and the voters in November when they vote on this, will be able to look at ballot language that is clear on these points. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musey. Any questions for Mr. Musey? Thank you. Leonard Clark is next, followed by President Schmidt, Louis Schmidt.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Leonard Clark. Now, I'm not with any of these groups. You know me. I come here. I will come down on any one of you, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. But just as a normal citizen, okay, because as you can see, I'm not wearing a three-piece suit. I'm not a Harvard lawyer. I know a fair fight when I see one, and this is not a fair fight. This ballot, that dark money, and make no mistake about it, with the Supreme Court saying that you don't have to show who's paying for what, these out-of-state people, this non-citizens initiative, even though it's called that, this is a battle between knowing who is paying for something to influence my fellow citizens. Goldwater Institute itself has said that pension spiking was over. They even dropped their lawsuit. This is about transparency. I feel that the wool's trying to be pulled over the eyes of our fellow citizens. For those of you, and I know some of you on the council totally disagree with this initiative as I do, but okay, fine. They got their signatures, they spent their money, this out-of-state interest, they fly in their jet airplanes and their three-piece suits, and they come out here and try to fool us. Like this is going on all across the country. Phoenix is the model for this. But as a normal citizen that comes to these meetings day in and day out, like I'm gonna get up here and disagree with some of you on another agenda item later. I'm not getting any money. I don't get dark money. I'm just a regular citizen. They're not playing fair. This is an old Western movie. You have the black hat guys over there, dark money. They're coming to town, and they are trying to overthrow something that's worked well. They are trying to divide our fellow citizens, our workers. That's king of the hill with them. It's Nietzsche. Only the strongest survive. The only rule is who can spend the most money and not tell the truth about who's paying it. So guess what? As long as it takes, I'm going to be up here, you know, whenever somebody comes to our town with their dark money and they won't tell us who's spending this money in their three-piece suits, we will stand here nonviolently, constitutionally, to make sure that we expose who they are. Even though the Supreme Court disagrees with that, that is not fair, it's not ethical. You should not do this unless it shows the upfront cost. We could pay up to $651 million. Please do not try to pull the wool over my fellow citizens. Tell us where that dark money's coming from. That's not right.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clark. It has been brought up, I think, 3 times now at this meeting. I just want to make sure it's clear that both members of the council with Harvard pedigrees are very down to earth. So whatever stereotype about Harvard does not apply to the members of this council. All right, President Louis Schmidt, you're next. Up to 6 minutes. I know you got a couple cards in support.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Louis Schmidt, and I'll first tell my mom thanks. I just took her to the hospital, so she's there waiting. But I felt it was important to come over here, and we had it on Channel 11 over there. So, Mom, I'm sorry, but this is, you know, you're important, Mom, but this is, I cannot sit here. It's not funny. I'm being serious, you know. I cannot sit here and just listen to. Is that better? A little closer. Well, good. You know, I was at the hospital listening to you guys talk about some of the other items, you know. I heard Councilman DeCiccio state, well, this property tax rate is, you know, started doing what Sal does, started talking about how it's going to be increase and this and that, and, you know, he doesn't support any increases, and that's his prerogative. But the only clear thing about this ballot proposal, you know, the language that you guys have is that this is going to cost the citizens of Phoenix more money. We just went through a budget process that is going to, that we had a $38 million deficit. And in that deficit, what did we have to do? We told the citizens we're going to close the pools, the after-school programs, some of the arts programs, the senior centers, some of the public pools, and that's only with $38 million. And now we have this huge deficit that we know this is going to create. This is going to create a deficit for the citizens, for every citizen that lives here. Whether, you know, even if you're not a citizen, when you shop Phoenix, you're going to be paying for this expense. I heard Mr. Clark talk about transparency and reveal yourselves. Mr. Musey came in here today talking about, he's representing the Citizens for Pension Reform, some type of acronym, I don't even know what he said. But just a few months ago, he was saying for the Free Enterprise Club. But Scott, whatever you're at, we'd like to know, you collected 54,000 signatures, not 50,000. Only 34,000 of those signatures were certified or verified. Now, we'd like to know who paid for those signatures. You paid $1.50 for each one. We know it wasn't you who paid for that money. But who did this? It's not, you know, again, the citizens were misled by this. And at the end of the day, it's every citizen who votes who decide which way we go on this, whether we go to a 401 or we keep the current system, which is going to save over $600 million. But Mr. Musey, just at least we want to be transparent. That's the only part I agree with you, is that we have to be transparent in what we're doing here. This city council has an obligation, each one of you, no matter what district or what letter you have beside your name, all of you have responsibilities for the citizens, you know, for the entire community. For the Vice Mayor Waring to make robocalls for this group, you know, that is just irresponsible. How can you be a leader of this city and then still, you know, trying to push something that's going to cost the citizens more money? You sit there and laugh, you're not even paying attention, but that's just irresponsible. Was he even paid for that? Did he even disclose that? I mean, people need to know. I mean, you on that vacant seat, you might as well put Mr. Musey there. You can sit there and laugh and be disrespectful, but that's just, you know, that's just so unprofessional. The council talks about, Mr. DeCiccio talking about, oh, we don't understand, this is rushed. We're still waiting on the ethics policy that you guys still haven't passed. And that's been taking a long time. So for you guys to try to rush this proposal through here, I just don't know. At the end of the day, this is about transparency and letting every voter know what their vote means, a yes or a no vote. You three already signed, Mr. Waring and DeCiccio, you guys already signed a document saying that you will not support any cut for pay for police and fire officers. You sat here and, used that for your political posturing during the budget process. And then you had all these officers thinking that, these guys actually support us. You signed that proposal. The same piece of paper that you signed is the one that when you're supporting this pension initiative, you're going to tell all these officers that, oh, no, I didn't mean it. I changed my mind. Your support of this benefit, of this initiative, is going to take away pay from each fire and police officer. I know you don't care about the average city employees who provide everything for you, every service for you and your constituents, but I'm here to say that, this is a community that everybody thrives with. And we have to make Phoenix a community that is not going to be taxed with all this burden. The city of Los Angeles last year spent $200 million in fees that were paid to Wall Street. If this is all we want to do, then is this what we want to do, Mr. Waring, all those members of the city council? We have to make Phoenix a community that continues to thrive. All of you on this council have a responsibility to make sure that the voters are, you guys, like someone just said earlier, you guys preach transparency, but what does it mean? Do the right thing today. And said, and the citizens do deserve to know. Many of you on the city council have said, you're not the experts. These are the experts. You guys aren't the experts. And when people tell you what you don't want to hear, you guys knock the staff. Chiron is a neutral party. They have no interest in this. You guys hired them to do a service for you. They did that service for you, and they told you what the cost was going to be. And for you to sit here today and say, well, we got some secret numbers from some secret organization we don't know somewhere, and say that this is the savings, that's not it. Even Sal DeCiccio, I know you're listening still, Sal, he said that a lot of this, he doesn't agree with a lot of the language that was written on here. He helped write some of this language, and even he has said that he told the Free Enterprise Club or the Citizens, whatever club that they're changing their name to, he told them that a lot of this stuff's not going to pass, and it's unconstitutional. You on the council who claim that you're attorneys, you guys took an oath. You know that the Fields case was just overturned because it violated the state constitution. This has similar implications. And now we need responsibility here. And at the end of the day, this is going to cost the taxpayers more money, every single taxpayer. What's it going to mean? When you start paying that unfunded liability, it's going to be a huge increase. The citizens just did the reform last year. And for Mr. Musey or any organization to come in here and try to overdo what the taxpayers just did, that is irresponsible for our fellow council members to get suckered in, into that game. That's just irresponsible. And what we're asking you, what we're pleading for you, is let the voters know the transparency of this vote. Don't let it be misleading. Do the responsible thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt, for your testimony. I think that's all the cards I have on item number 43. Anybody else wish to testify on item number 43? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And Louis Schmidt asked the Vice Mayor a question about whether he was compensated for robocalls. And he promised to keep it very short, but I did want to give him an opportunity to respond on the issue of compensation.
I was not, and I support the initiative. I made calls supporting it, and happy to do it for free. And it's not a robocall if you actually make the call yourself. Subtle distinction. But in any case, we talked about professionalism. I was laughing because of the robocall comment. But of course, if you want to be treated like a professional, probably don't come to these meetings in a prison jumpsuit, as you actually did last year. So, you want to be taken seriously? Act like a serious person. Thank you.
All right, that went beyond what you said, but all right, the comment was unfortunately made. I'm trying to keep as much as possible on the issues itself, but to the issue of whether Vice Mayor was compensated, Vice Mayor indicates he was not compensated for those potential robocalls. So I have no other cards. Anybody else in the audience wish to testify on this item number 43? All right. I have a question for the city manager. One more before I throw a motion on the floor. Obviously, I appreciate the time and effort that you've put into getting your analysis as precise as possible based upon your best professional judgment. I happen to think that we have an outstanding city manager who was unanimously supported by this city council, and he does a very good job under difficult circumstances, and we ask him to give his best judgment and analysis to this council. We can choose to reject it. We can choose to say we have different numbers that we think but in terms of the professionalism which you provide, I want to say thank you for doing that. I know on this legal decision about the fact that the initiative itself, the language that would go in the charter, is not ambiguous. There's an issue about whether what we call the preamble or not, how it affects, but the language itself, I hope we can agree, is not ambiguous on that. But I want to ask a separate question. How would this affect your management of the city if this initiative were to pass? Can you give your best thoughts and analysis on that issue as the professional city manager of the city?
Thank you, Mayor. I have spent a lot of time reviewing it and talking with our professional staff and looking at particularly the experience in San Jose. I think, of course, the people have the right to vote and decide. I think it's my duty, though, to talk about what I believe the impacts on the organization are. And there's a couple things that I have concerns about. One is sort of minor, but it's something operational we'll have to deal with, and that is there's an expectation in this that or language that says it will become operational in 30 days. And I think an issue there is that to get the IRS to approve any sort of plan the way it's described in here will take much, much more than 30 days. And so that's sort of a technical and financial piece that's important. We have talked about the impact on labor contracts, particularly the next 2 years where we do have contracts and agreements that were this to pass, we would have to open those up and renegotiate. We just concluded a very challenging negotiation as we all have been in this room for in the last 3 months. And so I worry and am concerned about the impacts on our labor relations. I'm also focused on a cloud of uncertainty around us as an employer. When people would be seeking to come to the city of Phoenix to work, and there would be uncertainty about what our compensation is, that is not something that attracts people here. And if this passes, it would create, we would be the only government entity in Arizona with this particular type of retirement system. And so we would be at some sort of competitive difference, disadvantage, whatever it is, but we would be at a competitive difference with other governments. So the hiring uncertainty is something I'm focused on. And then Councilman Gallego asked about it, but I really do also look to the experience of San Jose and the fact that they are 2+ years into 10 pieces of litigation that have cost them $3 million. And beyond the money, it's the time and attention that gets drawn from our ability to manage, operate, and provide services to the public that management, council, legal staff are consumed by litigation rather than improving services to the residents of Phoenix. So just operationally, aside from money, those are the things that I would raise as issues that we would have to deal with in the future.
All right, thank you very much to our city manager. Unless there's any comments, I'll throw a motion on the table and see if it gets a second. I know the vice mayor has a differing one, and so he may substitute me out, and we can deal with that one, have a vote on his proposed language. But I would, and I can hand out copies to members of the council so you have it. The language that I'm going to propose is very, very similar to what our professional city staff had proposed, with some minor changes. Amend the city charter, eliminate participation in the current retirement plan, and establish a defined contribution plan for new employees, allow current employees to transfer into this plan, prohibit city contributions to any other retirement plan, comma, including deferred compensation plans, comma, post-employment benefit plans, and the police officer and firefighter retirement system, period. The intent is to track our professional city staff recommendation as closely as possible. There is the addition of, instead of police and fire, police officer and firefighter. The reason why I included that in this proposal is that there are both civilian and non-civilian employees within police and fire. So I'll make sure it's clear that the issue about PSPRS and the city's inability to contribute to that retirement plan, if this thing were to pass, involves police officers and firefighters, not the civilian staff of those departments. So I wanted to, the intent was to create as much clarity as possible relative to those two categories of employees. Other than that, it tracks very closely with what our city manager's professional city staff had proposed as as the proposed ballot language. That will be my motion for the proposed ballot language. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. As I mentioned, Vice Mayor, I know has a substitute that takes away the police and firefighter. Go ahead.
I do, thank you. I move a substitute motion. Mr. City Clerk, I gave you a copy. I gave you all copies, actually, so you have it in front of you. Shall I read it, or?
Yes, could you please read it?
Yes, I will read it. Felda, I think they were sending you one, and I know, I think it also got sent to Sal. I've got a copy here, Chris, I can read it. Thank you. These words all count towards the 50. Again, the changes are not accepted, depending how you look at it, as the mayor said, taking out the police officer and firefighter retirement system. There are a couple changes in nuance. So it goes like this. Amend city charter, eliminate new employee participation in the current retirement plan, and establish a defined contribution plan for future employees. Allow employees to transfer into this plan. Allow current employees, excuse me, to transfer into this plan. Prohibit city contributions to additional retirement plans for current employees, including deferred compensation or post-employment benefit plans. And I believe the rest of the yes and no is the same.
Okay, so that is a substitute motion. Is there a second on the Vice Mayor's proposed substitute motion?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions relative to the proposed substitute motion, which would not include the reference to the initiative's impact on city contribution to police officer or firefighter retirement systems?
I would just say potential. It's still in dispute, conflict. You said it like
Mayor?
that.
Okay, Vice Mayor, do you have any additional comments?
No, that's it. Go ahead.
Okay, Councilman Gates?
Thank you, Mayor. First comment that I would make is, obviously we're having there are a lot of legal issues in the air, and I think that the council might have benefited from the ability to go into an executive session at some point today, but we didn't notice executive session. And I'm not blaming anyone in particular. I didn't ask for it. I didn't suggest it to anyone. But I think in the future, when we have a situation like this where we know it's dripping with legal issues, we ought to at least reserve the right to have an e-session. Put it out there, notice it. Maybe we don't take advantage of it. But personally, I think it would have been beneficial. I did second this substitute motion, and I will be supporting it for a couple of reasons. First of all, the first line clarifies where it says eliminate new employee participation in the current retirement plan. That clarifies for the voters that this is not pulling our current employees out of the current retirement plan. I think that's a good clarifying change. And then for the reasons that I've stated earlier, I think it is a good change to remove the reference to the police and fire retirement system. Clearly, there is a question on whether or not how this is going to. I believe that reasonable minds could come up with different interpretations of whether or not this deals with police and fire, and why would we be sort of potentially getting ourselves into additional litigation with this language. That's why I'd like to see police and fire retirement system removed. I think that makes a lot of sense, because the reality is what we're asking, the interpretation that we've heard today basically ignores the first page and a half of this thing that's called text of proposed amendment that will be put in front of the voters. And so based upon that, I think that it would be in the best interest of the city. Look, however people feel about this initiative, it's going to be on the ballot. And the only thing that we're talking about is what's the best language for the interests of all of us, of the city of Phoenix, to avoid as much litigation as possible. And I personally believe that this substitute motion does that. Thank you, Mayor.
I thank you very much, Councilman Gates. Other members of the council, comments or questions regarding the
Mayor?
substitute motion? Councilman DeCiccio, please.
No, I've got a question if I could, if it's all right with you, Mayor. I'd like to ask you for both of it because it relates to both motions anyways. And this is a question of staff. Staff, have you reviewed both of these languages changes?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, no, we have not.
Okay. And is there a state law that governs what you can and cannot do with ballot language?
Mayor, Councilman.
Okay, just Councilor DeCiccio, I think council is trying to pull it up as quickly as possible, provide it to the city manager.
Pardon me?
Mr. Stocker.
There is state law. There's an ARS law.
No, he's providing it to our city manager. Just a moment.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman DeCiccio, yes, it's ARS 19, Section 19-125D.
And do both of these language changes meet that requirement?
I think.
I believe it's in the.
Yeah. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV either. Let me just ask Mr. Stocker.
Well, city manager,
Yeah.
I did not go to an Ivy League school. I went to ASU. And I know I'm not that smart. So
I went to Kansas, so I'm with you.
So it's just, I went to one of those schools. But I'm happy I went to ASU. I'm really proud of it. But I'm asking the question.
Yeah. Mayor, Councilman
There is
DeCiccio,
a 5%
I think.
deviation. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, I think our best answer there is that the council has the authority to refer language to the ballot. There is guiding state law, which has got case law behind it. And it talks about a descriptive title containing a summary of the principal provisions of the measure, not to exceed 50 words, stating the essential change in the existing law.
Right. But there's also, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's it.
I think they're done, Councilman. Do you have anything else, please?
No. So do any of these proposals meet that law? The requirement of the law?
All right, so the question is, to the best of your ability without violating attorney-client privilege, does it meet the requirements of state statute?
Either one.
Well, I can't provide a legal opinion on that.
And Mayor, I'm going to be voting against both proposals. I just think it's a wrong thing for us to be doing right now. I mean, I just don't, I can understand. And I don't believe that the initiative at all includes police or fire at all. Matter of fact, there's even a comment, I think, in the Arizona Republic from the fire union head saying this doesn't impact them and it has nothing to do with them either. So I don't believe that they think that it impacts them. So I don't know if there needs to be any more clarification than that. This is one of those things that has to go forward as it is. I mean, it was written by a third party, a neutral third party on this. And I think that any changes at the last minute without a proper legal review, and I think what Councilman Gates said was exactly correct. There should have been an E-session on this thing. This is kind of bizarre that there wasn't. Generally on something this big that there is, and everybody's been planning these changes for a while because you just don't write them overnight. So there should have been at least a legal presence from city staff somewhere, somehow, giving some guidance as to whether or not this should be moving forward. I understand why people want clarification on it, but I don't think that it does the taxpayers any good. I think it sets in place a very bad precedent. We've never done this before. The city's never changed at the last minute at all. So, but the city's also never done anything else before. I mean, I've never seen, and matter of fact, in our history, we've never seen two citizen-driven initiatives moving forward, one on pension, and then we're starting to see one on police because the city council and mayor and council refuses to deal with these large issues. So the citizens are taking this into their own hands. So there's been uncharted territory throughout the city, but I think that it's just a bad idea, and I would recommend the council just vote all that language down and move forward with the language that was recommended by the neutral third party, even though I don't always agree with it, but I think it sets in place a very bad precedent. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I just want to make sure clear that my motion makes only two changes, and that is change police and fire retirement system to police officer and firefighter retirement system, and the point was to clarify so that to the extent there was any confusion between civilian and non-civilian employees of those departments. I don't want to speak for the Vice Mayor, but I think his intent was to track staff language as closely as possible, but to take away the reference to the impact of the initiative on police officer and firefighter retirements. So, Vice Mayor.
And Mayor, I understand that, and I appreciate that, but the bottom line is you're still making changes, and this is just done in a non-transparent way. It's being done without any real public debate other than what's occurring here today. It wasn't done. No one's seen any of this language until today. I mean, no one saw it. No one in the public saw it. No one's had a chance to digest it. No one's ever been able to even look at this legally. So I understand the fact that everyone's trying to wish something to occur, but you can't just wish it. That's what that neutral third party was about. And I don't agree with them. I don't think it includes police and firefighters. And I think it's great that people are trying to take it out of that on that language part. But at the end of the day, it's the language and the initiative and the preamble that's on the ballot that will matter. So this only changes and puts in place something that may or may not be true, and I don't think it's fair to the public.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I just want to point out for the public that the proposed professional staff language that they've recommended was available last week, and obviously there has been significant media coverage on it in advance of this meeting. So in terms of the language itself, I think it's a mischaracterization to suggest that it was sprung on the last minute. Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mayor. Well, as you said, I don't think I'm changing anything fundamentally except dropping police and fire, which I've spoken about before, so that isn't the first time that's come up. I don't take issue with Councilman DeCicio's his legal interpretation of state law. That I'm not looking at it, so that may be subject to interpretation. But I guess bottom line, I can't vote for the staff proposed language because it includes police and fire. I don't believe that's doing our best effort to correctly inform the public because I don't believe that is actually affected. So I think we only have 50 words. So if any of the three proposals don't seem like they're spot on, remember, you got to do it in 50 words, which just isn't that easy when you're dealing with complex items that deal with a few different things. So I tried to make sure that this was crystal clear. We didn't really change anything in the staff language except dropping the police and fire part and making a few other, using those few words to sort of clarify some of the other stuff. But that's it. If I was doing an entirely different proposal, then I would have released it earlier. But your point is taken. I can't vote for the other one. So I wanted to be a guy who proposes an alternative and not someone who criticizes and doesn't have their own ideas. So I try to put something out there. The council can take it or leave it. I suspect they will leave it, but at least we'll have this discussion. But appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
No, Mayor, it wasn't meant to be anything either in that direction either, Jim. But I think both proposals on the table right now make changes, and that's where I'm having difficulty with this. I don't believe that there should be any changes to the recommendations at all, not even one word.
All right. Councilman Gates.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess for me, what's the question for staff? What's the drop dead date that we have to agree on the ballot language on this initiative?
The 15th.
Mayor, looking to the city clerk, if I'm remembering correctly, we must have something to the county no later than July 15th.
Okay. So I understand this is our last meeting before we go on council break, but if there are issues here about having the opportunity to review things, I think we ought to take the time. If we need time to review things, I'd rather do that than pass something that we don't think is right.
Me too.
I guess I must be missing something, but and specifically, and this is exactly my point before. Now, I think what I'm picking up on is an allegation, and that's a too strong a word. I think Councilman DeCicio is raising good questions about ARS 19125D. I would love to have the opportunity to ask our legal counsel if he agrees with that. I can't do that right now because we don't have an E-session noticed. So I guess I feel like I don't know what the rush is to move. Fair questions are being raised, and I don't think we should just pass something because we think, well, these other two that might be better, some people may think, but we haven't had the opportunity to get legal counsel on it.
Excellent. So I'll make sure it's clear that the legal counsel has reviewed the staff proposed language. Obviously, can't speak up here today. This council obviously has had E-session on the legal analysis of the initiative itself previously. But in terms of the language that our city manager has proposed here today, it obviously it wouldn't have come to this council if it hadn't been reviewed by legal counsel in advance. The only change that I'm proposing is police to police officer and fire to firefighter retirement system. And I think the intent of the vice mayor is simply to track staff language, but eliminate the reference to police officer and firefighter retirement system. Other comments or questions from members of this council? So I'm going to take, the motion is a substitute motion. Councilman Williams, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Thank you. The motion is Councilman Waring's substitute motion, which tracks professional staff, but eliminates any reference to police and fire retirement system. I will not be supporting the motion. Obviously, I made the underlying motion that included that for the reasons I stated earlier. So we're going to, Councilman or Vice Mayor?
Well, I just
Mayor?
have a question, I guess, for Councilman Gates. Are you suggesting we hold this item and have another meeting? Because I think I'd be okay with that.
I'm suggesting that if folks are going to vote for a measure that they don't think is as good as it could be and as accurate as it could be, that's not a good result. And instead, if people feel on this council that they need to get legal advice with respect to both of these, both the motion put on the table and the substitute motion, we ought to do that. This is too important to move forward so we can all go on break.
Can I ask a question of the staff?
Mayor?
Just a moment. Vice Mayor had a question. And
Just a procedural thing, Sal. So Dan, we're at the point now where we've got motion and a substitute motion. If, I'm not saying everybody would, how would we work that back? And can we have another meeting? I mean, I assume that we can, but.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, because under the council rules, you can only have one amendment, which is yours. At this point, you need to go ahead and move forward with the vote on that. If you wish to have come back for another meeting, then you would have to essentially vote both of them down and then so move.
Let me ask it this way: if my substitute fails, that's it. There's no further motions.
Right.
Somebody can't make a withdrawal or anything else after that.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that's correct. In other words, under council rules, you can only amend the original motion once, and your motion is that amendment. So you could not amend it further.
All right. So if mine failed, Mayor Stanton's motion passes. But if there is a complaint about transparency, very sensitive to that and understand Sal's concerns. So I guess someone there could ask for a reconsideration, and at which point would we have to have another meeting scheduled to do that in advance of that?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes, you could, the council could seek a reconsideration. That a special meeting can be called by the mayor or 3 members of this council.
Thank you. I just want to make sure it was all even possible, so thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor?
Councilman, go ahead.
Just a couple quick things, though, too. And both motions do make changes. And I'd like to know what the legal, and I think what Councilman Gates is talking about is more along like, why rush it today? Let's continue it because both motions on the table are making changes that we haven't all completely reviewed. And I understand why we're trying to do it. We want to keep the police and fire out of it. I totally agree with that. But until there is a real foundation on it, and we can't just say, I'm only doing, I mean, any one word change can change the significance of the entire language. It doesn't have to be 3 words. It could even be 1 word that would make that change. I don't know why we just don't continue this and then bring it forward in a week or less. I mean, we've got until all the way till next week. We can have another debate on this thing. We can talk to staff about it. It doesn't mean that it has to be done today.
Okay, excellent.
So the I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
The procedural part of it. So I want to ask staff if I could then. So if someone does ask for a reconsideration, or 3 members, I mean, I would be one of those 3 members that would ask for a special meeting. So I'm just putting it out there if anybody wants to use that, if they both go through or they both fail. I mean, I'll be one of the 3 asking for a special meeting. I don't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, I would agree with it. So if someone does ask for a reconsideration and you can't get the council members to meet, let's say, for whatever reason, you don't get your quorum of 5. Well, actually, you got to get 5 to pass it. It doesn't require, it's not just a simple majority. Is that correct, staff? You need 5 to pass it, is that correct?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, yes. You need a majority vote, which would be 5.
So what happens then if you don't have the 5 to get anything passed before the July 13th date? What happens then?
Mayor,
We're breaking the law because by law we have to have it there.
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, if there is not 5 votes, then any motion would fail. And so at this point, either the council would need to adopt proposed ballot language on or before July 15th. If they do not, then there's other remedies that could be made.
What would be the other remedy?
The other remedies would be that certain legal action could be taken to force, it's basically a writ of mandamus to mandate the ballot language be placed. That's one remedy.
I got it. So they could be from the outside, would have to force the council to act. So what happens if the language, let's say someone doesn't like the language, they could take it to court, and then that ties it up. And then what happens if the court says your language is not correct? What happens then?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, of course, there's always, under election law, any person could bring a special action, and under state law, there is an expedited process to hear that because it is an election matter.
Okay. All right. Well, so again, I don't know enough about the legal stuff. I'm just asking these questions because I am an ASU Sun Devil. Thanks a lot, Mayor.
All right, thank you very
Maybe
much.
I'm the devil.
All right, so we have right now the substitute motion is Councilman Waring's substitute motion on the proposed ballot language that eliminates reference to the impact on police officer and firefighter retirement system. Vice Mayor, last question. Then we're
Last
gonna vote.
question. All right, so we cannot continue this at this point.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, no, you could not. You need, at this point, the council needs to vote on the substitute motion, the
Right.
amendment. If that fails, then there would be a vote on the mayor's original motion. If that fails, then at that point, the council could continue this matter because there's no pending motion. But as it sits now, the council, under council rules, would need to vote on the original, on the vice mayor's substitute motion, and then the mayor's motion. That's as it sits now.
But Jim can change his motion.
Yeah.
Mayor?
All right, so the question is whether the vice mayor can change his motion now to something other than a substantive vote on his, he can withdraw it, I'm assuming, but I don't think he can change it to, so go ahead.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, at this point, your amendment received a second, and so you could not change it to another motion at this point.
Okay, so
It would
can't
need
change
to
it.
be-
So I can't change it, and we can't continue it.
So,
Pretty sure you can, as long as the second agrees to it.
I'm just, tell me what the rules are, that's all I want to know.
well, Mayor, Vice Mayor, if the second agrees to change the amendment, essentially, then, and you want to change it at this point, you can do that.
There you go.
Wasn't your second? I don't think she was your second.
Okay, all right, then I think it's a moot point.
Okay, so we have the motion from the vice mayor. We have a second. Councilman Gates, do you have another question?
I have a point of order. With respect to, once we get beyond the substitute motion, make sure I understand what the city attorney is saying. We're required to take a vote on the mayor's motion?
Yes.
Why?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, or excuse me, Councilman Gates, the rule, as it's stated under the council rules, is that once an original motion has been amended, then then there is a vote on the main motion if that amendment fails. So that's That's the council rule, and it's basically Council Rule 5.
Can you show it to me?
Sure. It basically, Council Rule 5E says, no more than one amendment to a motion shall be permitted. When a motion to amend a motion has been made and seconded, the next vote shall be on that motion to amend. If the motion to amend fails, the original motion remains on the floor and shall be voted on.
But it means that, well, again, I would argue that that means that then that the original motion is now to be decided upon. But if there was a, I guess if, as long as the maker of the motion and the second, okay. All right.
All right, so.
No, that's fine. We're trying to, this is a serious matter, so we want to take the time to walk through this. I think that's what you would all want us to do.
Yes.
Okay, but the real issue is whether we're going to vote today or we're going to vote, set up a special meeting and vote on another day. It is my strong belief that the motion that I made, the underlying motion, is the staff recommendation with simple clarifying language from police to police officer and from fire to firefighter. And so should be voted on today. It has been out there. There's been media articles written about it. The public is well aware of the issue that's being voted on today. It's my belief that we should vote today. But first, we have to vote on the vice mayor's substitute motion. I'm going to try it again. So the substitute motion is Councilman Waring, Vice Mayor Waring's motion that does not include reference to police officer or firefighter retirement systems. So a yes vote supports the councilman's substitute motion, and a no vote would then revert back to allow a vote on my motion. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
No.
Gallego.
No.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
No.
Pastor.
No.
Valenzuela.
No.
Williams.
No.
Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
No. I got confused there. So the motion fails 7-2. Now we're going to go to my motion that was seconded by Councilman Valenzuela. I respect the fact that there is a desire by some to have a further executive session and a special meeting of the City Council to analyze the difference between police to police officer and fire to firefighter. I respectfully disagree and suggest that those are simply clarifying minor changes, and that what the staff has put out there has been what's out there, obviously approved by legal counsel. So let's have a motion.
Mayor?
Councilman Williams, please.
Yeah, I want to ask a question, and it's probably from staff, maybe from legal, because I felt all along that the public needs to be aware of potential cost this is to the taxpayers. Why that was not included in staff's recommendation. I understand yours is simplification and more of a definition, but it goes back to staff's recommendation. And if you could have the city manager explain why there's no dollar value placed on this, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Williams. Our advice about the state law is that we are to provide a short, clear, accurate statement of what the law does. And so the language that we have really focused on that piece and focused on what our analysis of the law says that it does. So in that regard, it did not include cost.
So the law doesn't care how much it costs. It's just talking about the impact of what would happen.
I guess that's one way to say it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Thank you for your patience, too. I know you're out of town today and been participating via phone. All right, so the motion is what I read. I passed out to members of the council. We have a second.
Mayor?
Councilman, please.
Again, I just think that any changes without a thorough public review and scrutiny for transparency, there are no minor changes on this. Our legal staff hasn't even had an opportunity to look at it. Matter of fact, the council, we didn't even see it until just now. So nobody has seen the changes. Granted, you may think that they're small, but they may not, at the end of the day, be small issues. So I think that that's problematic. Making any changes beyond what a neutral third party has agreed should be the language. It just sets a very slippery slope for the city of Phoenix, and it does not put in place credibility in our electoral process, because you may think it's small now, it may be large later. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the public expects a high level of integrity, and any changes need to be done through a process that is transparent and open to the public. I'll be voting against it, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman Nowakowski.
Mayor, just some clarification. So your changes are, what are they exactly from the original recommended by
In
staff?
the original staff language, it uses the phrase police and fire retirement system, and the change is a police officer and firefighter retirement system.
And the reason being is that includes all, not just sworn officers, but also employees that work for this
No,
department.
the key issue is there is that PSPRS only involves sworn employees of those departments. Unsworn are in the COPER system, and so it was an intent to make it clear that the cities, the language in the initiative that would no longer allow the city to put money into the PSPRS is for firefighters and police officers, not other employees of those departments.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, so we have a motion. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
No.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
No.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Waring. No. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so that item passes on a 6-3 vote. Thank you, everyone, for your patience throughout the meeting. I know people here for other items. We're going to just take a 1-minute break, and then and allow people to leave who are here for this item, and then we'll get back to the remainder of our formal agenda. Thank you.